Good afternoon and welcome to a new edition of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper. Well, let me ask you, have you enjoyed the weather this week? I mean, outside of the pollen and the ragwood, we must say it's been a beautiful summer-like week. Spring is still here, but a beautiful summer-like week. And, it's just great to see all the flowers blooming and the trees blooming and so much happening in our city. And speaking of cities, many of our cities are opening up. And so looks like we will be able to kind of get out and about. The mask rules have changed. And so, it's promising. But, we all still have to be very careful. We are still in the midst of a pandemic. And we still, in many ways, still need to continue to wear our masks. The social distancing sounds like it may have been relieved a little bit, but it's still a lot of work ahead to get through this pandemic. But speaking of opening, I hope you've had a chance to read a copy of this week's Washington Informer and checked out WI Bridge. Their great issue I think we have this week, a lot of news and information in there for you. So we hope that you will pick up a copy of the Washington Informer. If not, you can read it online at www.washingtoninformer.com. And while you're there, we want you to subscribe to our e-newsletter. It's easy. There's a form there. You just fill it out, and automatically you are one of our subscribers. And you'll get an e-newsletter either daily or weekly, however you'd like it, special promotions, as well as news updates. We want to share all of that with our viewers and our subscribers. Also, we'd love for you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Subscribe to us. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, just push the subscribe button. We're counting on you to do that for us. It really makes a difference. So we'd love for you to be a regular subscriber of Washington Informer News, WIN TV. We broadcast every Friday from noon to 1 here on this channel. And let us know if you're happy with the newspaper, if you like what you've been seeing. We want to hear from you. We don't get a lot of letters, a lot of feedback, but we certainly would like to hear from you. So you can always email us at news@washingtoninformer.com. Again, that's news@washingtoninformer.com, and we will respond. You might even have some recommendations for individuals that can appear on our show with us, and so we certainly would like to hear that from you as well. Today, we'll be speaking with columnist and human rights attorney Oscar Blayton. Also, author Joy Proctor will be with us to talk about her new book, and we'll talk to Dr. V, who will give us advice on staying well. This is Jazz Appreciation Month, and we'll have a conversation with DC native saxophonist, composer, and DCPS educator, BJ Simmons. So stay tuned for the media prints who will come on following WIN TV, and also following WIN TV, the media prints who I love after the show always talks about what's going on in DC. So we think we got the news. You got to hear what the media prints has to share with you. And also the Sounds of the DMV, which features a new artist this week. So before we jump into our first conversation, let's share a little highlights of the news for this week. This weekend, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is hosting a vaccine walk-up clinic throughout all 8 wards of the District of Columbia. You don't need an appointment, and if you want a vaccine, it's available. So for the full list of sites, we ask you to go to our website at washingtoninformer.com and click the Health tab. We want everybody to have a wonderful, safe, healthy summer. So please, it's not too late to get tested. You can always do that. And if it's been so good so far, we recommend that you go ahead and get the vaccine so that we all can have a safe and enjoyable summer. Ben's Chili Bowl, our favorite restaurant on U Street, is getting national attention in a new Google ad showing someone searching for quote unquote restaurants near me. And so we celebrate with Ben's Chili Bowl for the spotlight. We're so glad that they've made it through so many struggles over the 50, 60 years that they've been there on U Street. And they've come through a pandemic, which means also I should share, because it's not really in the notes here, but the Small Business Administration, has released a great deal of dollars for restaurants. And if you're a restaurant in the District of Columbia and you have been impacted by COVID, I recommend that you go post haste right away to the SBA website and see if you can get some of that money to help you out in the next few months to try to gear up for what should be a busy season here in the nation's capital, in Prince George's County, Northern Virginia. Wherever you are watching this show, if you're a restaurant owner, go on out there and get those dollars, because they're there for you. And we want to see you continue to survive and thrive this year. The Washington football team had the 19th overall pick in the NFL draft yesterday. The team secured linebacker Jamin Davis from Kentucky. And so we look forward to seeing this starter coming. Well, he's only a starter for 1 year, but we look forward to having him coming and joining our Washington football team ranks and to help us get that ring. That's what everybody wants. We want to see, we missed a lot over the last year with regards to all of our sports teams, but, to get back out there and do the thing, we welcome Jamin Davis to the Washington team and wish you all the best of luck. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan has reopened senior centers and lifted the outdoor mask mandate. He also announced that all outdoor dining restrictions would be lifted tomorrow. That's Saturday, May 1st. It will be lifted tomorrow, but that masks are still required at large ticketed venues. So as I said, restaurant owners, if you need some cash because the doors are open, according to the governor, folks will be pouring in. And if you need to sort of staff up or whatever it takes, go ahead and get some of that money that the SBA is offering because the time is now. And speaking of the pandemic, according to the Center for Disease Control, around 8% of people, totaling more than 5 million, did not get their second dose of either Pfizer or Moderna's 2-shot vaccine. That number is up from March, when the CDC data showed that around 3.4% of Americans had missed their second shot. Both shots, given either 3 weeks or 4 weeks apart, respectively, are needed. Let me repeat that. Both shots are needed to reach the vaccine's full efficacy of about 91 to 95%. So come on, people, go on out there and get that vaccine. If you have some questions, email me. I'm fine, I hope. But at any rate, yeah, we recommend that you do it just so that, we can get this thing going and get our communities back up and running like they should be. It's been reported that the District of Columbia's resident population grew from 14% in 2010 to 2020. It has grown, and that number came from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it was announced on Monday. Now, they're still waiting for an update on the numbers, but in the District of Columbia, according to those numbers, the number of residents in the district has grown from 601,723 residents in 2010 to 689,545 last year. Still haven't reached that 700,000 mark, which we've been talking about for so long in the district. But and that's why I think city officials are concerned about whether there was actually an undercount in the District of Columbia. And so what does this mean for DC residents? We're going to find out soon, as our reporters are working on a story that you can read soon on our website and in the Washington Informer. Finally, I don't know about you all, but I was glued to my television to hear Congress, to hear the President Biden's speech on, what was that, Thursday night? Wednesday night. It was Wednesday night. Yeah, the president's speech on Wednesday night. His first speech before Congress. It was interesting that we all are celebrating the fact that there were two women seated behind us, the first time in history. Two women were seated behind him, and he was led. Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi were on the dais behind the president. But also historical is the fact that we had the first African-American sergeant of arms to escort the president into the House chambers. And so we had a lot of history being made that night. The president talked about his $2 trillion infrastructure plan, as well as $1.8 trillion for families, children, and students. He mentioned a green energy initiative, a push for Medicare to negotiate drug prices, and passage of police reform, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. And then after his speech, of course, he was responded to by Republican Senator Tim Scott. Tim Scott is from South Carolina. And so Tim Scott's remarks were pretty predictable, and he took issue with much of what the president had to say. But the one thing that caught my attention, and I think so many others, is when Tim Scott said that the U.S. is not a racist country. Senator Scott, you know, we have reached out to you several times, and we would love to have a conversation with you, not only here at WIN TV, but also with the National Newspaper Publishers Association. But I have to ask, Senator Scott, what rock have you been under? Really? Okay, so maybe you want to deal in semantics and say that the U.S. is not a racist country, but the country is made up of people, and those people have exercised racist practices, especially among African Americans, for well over 500 years. May have been longer than that. You figure 400 years of slavery based upon race. And as President Biden said in an interview yesterday, the vestiges of racism continue to exist in this country. So to deny it is ludicrous. Anyway, that's my editorial for today. But I mean, really. And if you all have some comments that you want to say about that, or maybe you want to defend Senator Scott, you're free to do so. But you know, I mean, it's one thing to have a conservative viewpoint or a liberal viewpoint, but the facts are the facts, and to deny those facts, what can I say? It makes no sense. Anyway, we're going to take a little break for a second as we transition. And Sherry's looking at me like, a break to do what? A break to breathe. But we're going to bring on our first guest, who is attorney Oscar Blayton. He's a human rights attorney and a columnist. And we want to talk to him a little bit about what's going on with police reform, not only all across the country, particularly as it relates to the case with George Floyd and the Chauvin case and Black Lives Matter. So we will take a break. Here's
another edition of WIN TV's Black Facts. On April 30th, The Cosby Show ran its final original episode in 1992. On May 1st, poet Gwendolyn Brooks became the first Black American to be awarded a Pulitzer Prize in Poetry in 1950. May 2nd, the first game of the National Negro Baseball League is played in Indianapolis. May 3rd, 1921, famous boxer Sugar Ray Robinson was born in Alley, Georgia. On May 4th, 1975, model and fashion guru Kimora Lee Simmons was born. On May 5th, photographer Monetta Sleet became the first Black American awarded a Pulitzer Prize for his photo of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s family during his funeral. And lastly, May 6th marks the 68th birthday of famed actress Lynn Whitfield.
Reporting from the Washington Informer, this is Lindiwe Lakazi.
Thank you so much, Lindy. And welcome to Win TV, Attorney Blayton. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine. Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to start off with a question which I couldn't even understand why I was asking this question, and that is, are you an expert in police reform? But I think you have a very interesting response to that.
Well, given that this country has never seen any real or significant police reform, I don't believe anyone can claim to be an expert in it. It would be like claiming to be an expert in unicorns, which don't exist.
But the fact that we have gotten, well, why would you say that? Because, you know, I mean, it seems as though every time there's a new chief of police in any area across the country, they're always looking at ways in which, and budgets sort of dictate that as well, I would think, how a police unit will operate. And so maybe it's an internal reform process as opposed to one that's external. But police departments are constantly in transition. Would you agree?
It depends on what you mean by reform. I mean, you can tweak something and change something here and there. You can rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic as it sinks. You know, that's not reforming the Titanic situation. So a lot of what these people are saying that they're doing to, quote, reform the police is really just sort of moving things around, shuffling things around, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. In order to have some real and significant police reform, we have to get at the root of the issue. American policing was based upon slave patrols, people catching runaway slaves or trying to punish runaway slaves. That is the actual existential root of American policing. It began with the Spanish in Cuba. It transformed over Barbados. Barbados is very directly connected to U.S. policing. And when Britain decided to end slavery in the 1830s, a lot of Bayesian white planters moved to South Carolina and brought their slaves with them. And that was one of the first states to implement a type of police force, because it was basically a control mechanism to keep slaves from running away or revolting or stuff like that. So over the years, American policing has been built upon that foundation. So the entire structure needs to be changed and reformed itself. You can't tweak, say we're going to give somebody 2 hours of implicit bias training or introduce them to the community and they'll do better. We have a system that is very much infected with hate. It's a hate-filled system in many instances. And we have to address that. It's based quite a bit on white supremacy, not totally, but a lot of it. And its very structure is based upon the idea of white supremacy.
So how complicit would people be who, let's say back in the day, especially here in the District of Columbia, when we had no Black members, Black officers on the police force, and local activists really fought hard to get more Blacks in the upper ranks of the police force. And we celebrated, cities across the country are celebrating, you know, the first Black police chief, or as Congressman Val Demings, you know, the first Black female police chief. Does that make residents or Americans complicit, Black Americans complicit in perpetuating a system that you described?
As I mentioned in the commentary that I wrote last week, and I believe the Informer has published that, we have to participate in public safety within a particular context. The context in which it is based now has a great deal to do with white supremacy. There have been a lot of very fine Black police officers, a lot of very fine white police officers, but the structure itself can tend to warp an individual's perspective. I had mentioned in my commentary about the young police officer, Alex King. He had only been on the force full-time for 3 days and only been on the street for 2 days when he was involved in the George Floyd murder. Now, here's somebody who claims that he joined the police force in Minneapolis to help improve it, to help protect people who were being abused by an abusive police department. Yet he winds up being complicit in one of the most horrendous murders shot on video and seen around the world. It sparked a movement. So I think that this young man's intent was right, but the system was such that it warped him. It allowed him to participate in this thing. You know, how willing he was is hard to say, you know, but people are going to have to consider, how do you, you know, participate in this process in contact? There have been many very fine Black police officers, but there have been Black police officers who've not been that great. I've seen Black police officers crack heads, you know, with nightsticks for seemingly no reason, you know. Right. So just because a person is Black doesn't mean that they're filled with righteousness and good thinking. So we have to say the system is bad, you know, and we have to protect people from those who would do harmful things, you know, and are empowered by the state to do so. So yes, I'm not saying that we should not have Black police officers, but I am saying that they have to understand what they're doing. I put it in terms of my own personal experience. I went to Vietnam. I was a Marine Corps officer. I was a combat pilot. Vietnam was a war for white supremacy. Okay, I own up to that. I participated in helping to kill people of color, you know, for a global agenda of white supremacy. So acknowledging that, then what do you do to try to make sure it doesn't happen again, to correct or fix those problems? And Black police officers, any police officer of color or any white police officer has to understand that what they do has consequences. They have to own up to what they do. They have to understand what it is they're trying to do, and they have to stick to an agenda that will promote the welfare of people rather than wind up murdering them on the street.
So let me ask you, because in this effort, let's go back a little bit to address some issues of what people might consider police reform. Are the body cameras? What's your take on body cameras? Does that do anything to address, you know, the abusive tactics of police officers?
Body cams can be helpful, but how many instances have you heard of where the body cams were not on, were not working, have been left behind? Until we can figure out a system that more rigorously enforces, you know, the use of body cams, I think, you know, they're going to be helpful to some degree, but only to the degree that they're not abused. I think that officers should be disciplined if for some reason their body cam goes out and they don't report it immediately, then they should be disciplined. Because a lot of times, it's my belief that a lot of these officers are turning their body cams off so that they can do things that they want their superiors to see. So it's a step forward, it's inching forward, but it's still very slow, and it's based on a foundation of white supremacy that has to be dealt with.
So do you have recommendations or of what cities or departments need to be doing in this whole area of police reform? Is police reform an achievable goal? Can we reform a system, you know, that has really a notorious history? Can it be reformed?
It's an existential issue. It depends on what you consider to be policing. I mean, the idea goes back beyond the 9th century posse comitatus, you know, which was basically the sheriff could round up men to go chase somebody down who was a bad actor, stole a cow or killed a pig or something. So it's foundational. The problem is foundational. I think it can be changed, but it cannot be changed by tweaking here and there. You cannot cut down a tree by, you know, clipping off a branch here and there. You have to work at the trunk. You have to work at the root. One of the things that I would say is that we do not need an armed response when somebody is having a mental or emotional breakdown of sorts. I mean, you do not need it every time. I think that cities, counties should empower people that are social workers that are trained to work with people who are having crisis to go out there. Now, perhaps an armed policeman might escort them, but the person who is unarmed and trained to handle the situation would be in charge, and that person would be the person to authorize that police person to use force on the scene. It would not be up to the police officer who is trained. Do you know in many states, you can become a police officer with less training than it takes to become a licensed cosmetologist? I mean, you can be given a gun and allowed to go out and shoot someone in the street with less training than it takes for you to do somebody's hair.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That I did not know, but I know that a lot of, particularly in the district where there's an effort to recruit more local residents and to increase the recruitment of police officers. I don't know if the training lasts more than in a couple of months, but I mean, when you talk about police reform, is that something you're saying as well, that the training needs to be longer? It needs to include more mental health, classes. I mean, what is it that you think would be the magic, pardon the pun, the magic bullet?
Well, there is no magic bullet. I taught for a short while at a police academy in Hampton, Virginia. I taught Fourth Amendment issues, basically telling policemen what they should not do in terms of violating persons' Fourth Amendment rights with regard to stopping, searching, stuff like that. I think that most police training focuses on this idea of round up the bad guys and type of thing, where it's almost like military training. So I don't think training in the current context is the answer. It has to be completely revamped, the training does. And the mission of the police department has to be revamped. So when you revamp the mission, then you revamp the training, because if you train someone not to pull your gun at first sight, but to get someone competent to handle a situation on the scene, then the training is very different.
Mm. And so lastly, Attorney Blayton, so, there's the Black Lives Matter movement, so many others, NAACP, a lot of national organizations are asking for police reform. And even in your state of Virginia, where you are, I know that you've been involved. What do you think that I guess the movement should be, as opposed to defunding police? Or, I mean, are they barking up the wrong tree? Or what's your opinion on what the movement should be asking for?
My understanding from talking to many people who are involved in the movement is that people are not saying we do not need a police department. They are saying take money that you're giving to police to buy tanks and these weapons of war and put them into hiring competent social workers, counselors, and people that can help people. The idea is to protect and serve, not to punish and kill. So defunding the police means taking those monies, those billions of dollars we're spending for all these crazy warlike weapons, and putting them into human services and putting them into people that can help people that need help. And not the primary goal to be do you know in Finland, only policemen in Finland in 2013 only fired 7 bullets. I think it was 7 bullets the entire year. An entire year, their police department, the whole country, fired, not talking about killing people, just fired weapons, 7 bullets in the whole country. So it's not that it cannot be done. People can be, made to rethink about these things, because it's not a military action. And I know that one of the reasons why policemen are so quick to shoot people is because of the crazy gun laws we have. You can walk into a store and buy an automatic weapon, walk out in a short amount of time. So yes, policemen are afraid that somebody may have a gun because our laws allow everybody to have a gun. If we change that and prevent people from having so many guns, then the policemen won't be in such fear of their lives when they approach a car for a broken tail light.
Yeah, I'm sorry we got to go, but I totally agree with you. Not that you asked my opinion, but I would say in the District of Columbia, where we have some of the strongest gun laws in the country, but we also have a city that's full of guns, and a lot of those guns are owned illegally, and so that brings up another conversation about just the gun laws, as you said, in particular, and the argument, what I just raised being the argument that the other side uses sometimes against gun laws. But there needs to be some effort to control the number of guns that are on our streets, and where they're coming from, I think leads to a very, very interesting conversation. Mr. Attorney Blayton, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. And, we will definitely have you back, continue to write, and we continue to look forward to having your voice in the Washington Informer.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty. Have a great day. So next we're going to talk about that. This is Jazz Appreciation Month. And, I want to say, first of all, that those of us in the DC community sadly said farewell to one of our great jazz, I guess, writers and someone who worked with the Washington Informer for many, many years and was just really steeped into the jazz music industry. And that was Bill Brower. And folks came together last week at the Howard Theater and had a whole celebration on U Street in honor of Bill, who we all love so dearly. And we're just sorry that we lost him. But, his memory goes on in this moment as we talk to BJ, the saxophonist, who's coming on to talk to us about some of the work that he's been doing, not only in jazz, but also in the classroom. We're going to take a listen to a little something, and we'll be right back.
That grins and lies, it hides our cheeks and shades our eyes.
What's up, BJ? How are you?
How you doing, Denise? What's going on?
Oh, you and the great music. I mean, I'm glad we got you on the last day of Jazz Appreciation Month.
Wow, thank you so much for that.
It has nothing to do with how much we appreciate jazz, though. It's just so we're going to keep the music rolling all the way to Black Music Month, which is coming up in May.
That's right.
Yeah. June. Thank you, Sherry. Coming up in June. And you said that's right. Come on, sister out. But tell me, I mean, I got to give you a shout out. Coolidge Coat. Love it, love it, love it. But how long have you been, kind of interested in jazz music?
It's interesting. Since I was 8 years old, because my grandfather had a great a record collection. So I've been checking out the music because he had the records around, and he was a jazz drummer. So I've been studying the music, but seriously studying the music. I started playing at age 15, and I really got hooked to the music. And so around 19, when I got really serious about playing.
Wow. Okay. And tell me who were some of the artists that you just wanted to emulate or who you loved back in the day?
Yeah. So Charlie Parker was my first connection to jazz. And then I got into Jackie McLean and John Coltrane. Of course, everyone loves Miles Davis, and just started checking out a number of Blue Note artists who were signed into that label at that time. So wow, wonderful.
So who is Culture Shock?
Culture Shock is my band.
Okay.
So I'm BJ Simmons and Culture Shock.
How'd you come up with the name Culture Shock?
Well, it's interesting because I was traveling between the United States for several years. I lived in Bahrain in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a culture shock because it was the first time that anyone had mentioned me as BJ the American. It's the first time I had ever heard that before, as referred to as an American.
Now, how'd you get there before you finish the story? How'd you get there?
Oh, it's interesting. So I was living in LA, and I got a call to do an artist residency in Bahrain. So I worked at this jazz club 5 nights a week, Coda Jazz Lounge. It's like the first jazz lounge in the Middle East, actually. Well, in Bahrain. Mm-hmm. So And so I ended up taking the art residency, and I ended up staying for 2 years.
Wow, amazing. And then became BJ the American.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of expats there, but it was just me just living in a whole nother region. I never lived outside the United States, so just coming back and forth. But the culture, the shock was, just experiencing the feeling of being appreciated abroad. And feeling that energy, and just feeling that, and then coming home, and then we had Donald Trump in the White House, and so that between those two things kind of gave me a culture shock.
You and a lot of other folks as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I mean, it's really interesting though, also to note that, and I think about, I don't know why I'm having brain freeze at the moment, but. The great jazz musician out of New Orleans, your protege. Oh God, thank you, Wynton. Because Wynton Marsalis was so adamant, about trying to ensure that young people, were exposed to jazz. I mean, we kind of get geared towards, whatever the music of the day is, but jazz, has a long history. And so, here you are. I guess our ambulance came to your neighborhood, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what's going on out here?
Pretty quick.
That was quick.
We only have 3 minutes to get there. But at any rate, I mean, so as a young person, growing up in the jazz culture and it's deciding that this is where you wanted to plant your roots, I'm just still curious. I mean, you told me who influenced you, but how you've been able to find your place in this genre.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. I mean, having good mentors around. I studied under Calvin Jones at UDC. My high school band director, Benjamin Sands, got me into the music. I even got a chance to learn from Davey Yarborough. And so just being around
Coolidge again. I'm sorry.
Coolidge.
We were there together.
We just keep running it. We running it. I mean, yeah. So it's just been, just having, I went to study at Norfolk State under Stephanie Sanders. Just being around a lot of great musicians, and that kind of helps to. You have to be, you have to get with the elders, because that's how the music is passed down.
Right.
Through the elders, an old tradition, and talking about how they did it back then. So. And
you picked up the saxophone.
The saxophone, yep. I started playing. Yeah, my grandmother, she was like, my grandmother was an opera singer, and she was like,
wow,
I want you to play. She was a member of the National Negro Operatic Group, and
wow.
And so she said, I love the saxophone. I want you to play the saxophone. So I played the saxophone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you ever have, did you have again, I guess you were encouraged, but how much investment did your parents make in taking lessons, or were you just sort of picked it up and could play a song right away?
Well, I do pick up things pretty fast, but I got my training earlier on. My mom, got me into the DC Youth Orchestra, and so she would pay for my lessons there, and I got to study under Michael Kelly, saxophonist, and so she did make an investment. In fact, my first horn, she bought my first. It's a quick story. I bought my first horn from Chuck, Washington Music Center, and I got it on what is it called when you pay on it, and I was paying on
layaway.
Yeah, that's how long layaway. That's how old layaway. So and then she went and just picked up my horn, and I just saw it. She was like, "Yeah, go in that closet right there." And my mom bought my horn, my Yannick Isawa saxophone, which I still play today.
Nice. And so I know that you've toured with some greats. You want to talk about some of the folks you've toured with?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I've had the opportunity to work with rapper Wale. Did a couple of tour dates with him. Millie Jackson. Ray Goodman and Brown. I even did one jazz festival date with the great drummer Harvey Mason from the Foreplay Band. And so, and also Omar, the soul singer Omar, did a gig with him. Sonny, I've recorded with Sonny Badu. I've done several. I'm just blessed to be able to have worked with those artists and shared the stage with them.
Wow. As we talk too, I think about Russell. I think it's Russell Williams, who's over there at American University, who did the soundtrack for Glory. I mean, one of the first to get an Oscar for doing that soundtrack.
Yes.
And I should say one of the first African Americans to get an Oscar. But when you look at movies, movie competitions like that, and you realize, that we're still not present. What do you think we need to be doing? And not only present with regards to, being involved or being honored for our contributions, but also, the challenge that a lot of DC artists have, and maybe you've overcome that with being, picked up in different places. You said you spent time in LA and Bahrain, but local artists are sometimes trying to figure out, where can I go to make that move. So how did you make that transition? And then when you look at these movies soundtracks, I mean, have you thought about that as a way of pursuing your career?
Yes. Well, thank you for that question too, because I just I landed my TV placement actually with the Black News Channel. And so my music is being aired. It's going to be on the State of Play talk show on Saturday and Sunday at noon. There's a shameless plug there.
No, they do it while you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. Yep. But I saw, the scoring is something that I definitely going to get more into. I actually have scored a couple of film before, but in terms of artists breaking through, it's not an easy, it's not easy to break, but it's, just getting to know people, networking. Like, you got to talk to people. You got to be in people's faces all the time. You got to, people need to see who you are and hear you, and you got to have something that's good that people want to listen to and check you out, because those are the building blocks, for any person who's trying to get on, and I'm still trying to get on even more. I'm still young, so there's so many things I'm still trying to accomplish. So yeah.
So and that's a good thing, and we know there are millions of people watching us right now. So so hopefully that right person is going to say, let's call BJ, let's bring him on. But no, what I I'm just. COVID has had a devastating impact, not only on restaurants and other industries, but especially on the entertainment industry, because a lot of the artists really have been sort of locked in, hopefully creating music at the same time. But how's it impacted your career? I mean, this past year, what has it been like for you?
Wow. Well, when you take an artist outside of their their comfort zone, which is the stage. Our comfort zone, believe it or not, sometimes is the stage. It's like, and so it was very difficult at the beginning because when you take away from this synergy that you experience with working with the musicians, because you're going in, it's almost like you tell LeBron and those guys, hey, stop playing basketball for some time. It's like, no, or tell anyone who's passionate about something to stop doing it for some time, and then you get all types of reactions. People get depressed, people get sad. I mean, I personally worked on myself. I just I went to the gym more. Just tried to eat healthy, and I composed more, and that's actually how my last album came from the pandemic. Actually, it's actually birthed out of the pandemic.
So that's what I want to talk about, your music. How can people find it? Two, I want you to talk about your last album. Sure. Where can we hear this BJ and the Culture Shock?
Sure. You can hear it on all digital platforms. You can find it wherever you listen to music, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music. it's everywhere. And it also it's in 200 countries. Currently featured on smoothjazz.com. It was charted on number 12. Actually number 4 also is as high as number 4 on the listener countdown. So you can find We Wear the Mask everywhere. BJ Simmons, We Wear the Mask.
So was the Wear the Mask sort of a takeoff on the fact that we're all wearing the mask? Is that where you got that from?
That is one part. So it's 50% of that and 50% of the fact. Actually, it ain't 50% because it's a lot more deeper than just the mask. But I actually got We Wear the Mask from the original Paul Laurence Dunbar poem, We Wear the Mask. And he wrote a song. He wrote a poem. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and fades our eyes. And so I actually, when I looked at what happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and everything what happened on the social justice end, that just kind of got me. Just watching Derek Chauvin on his neck for 9 minutes, it did something to me. That changed because that was a public lynching again. And so that really affected me. And so that's where I got the music and got the inspiration to create my most recent work, We Wear the Mask. And it's from the original poem, We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Right. That's a fantastic story. Before we go, I just want to ask one more thing, because, the music lives on by those who expose it to the next generation. Yeah. And I know that you're, actively doing that, but how do you think young people actually are receiving jazz right now? Is it all we hear about is, the other music that they like. And of course, by being from DC, we all love go-go. But where does jazz play in the lives of young people? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people don't know that they're hearing jazz and the influence of jazz in the music. And so I teach the lineage of the music and showing, where things came from. How did we get here sonically and musically? But what I teach is that there's a message in the music. Whatever music you listen to, there's a message. And, in terms of, you said receiving jazz, a lot of young people are not checking out jazz music. But that's why it's so important that we teach it in school. Mm-hmm. It's not always about Mozart and Beethoven, but it's about Coltrane and Miles.
And a little bit of Chuck Brown too.
And a lot of Chuck Brown. A lot of Chuck Brown. And in fact, there's a go-go in the school initiative that a couple of people are forming. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We've been talking to Charles Stevenson about that and some others. Yeah, BJ, I'm so glad you decided to come by and spend a little bit of time with us and to talk about, so what you've been involved in, particularly as we as I said, transition from Jazz Appreciation Month to Black Music Month in June. Sure. And so, we appreciate what you're doing, the music. We're going to check you out. Ask everybody. Tell us one more time where we can find at least your latest album.
Sure. We Wear the Mask is all over. It's on iTunes, Amazon, wherever you listen to music, you can find the album.
All right.
And thank you so much for having me. Appreciate that.
Thank you. All righty. All right. Well, good luck, and we will talk to you again sometime soon.
All right. Awesome. And Coolidge Coats. Shout out Coolidge Coats.
Okay, that's a DC thing, y'all. But we're a DC newspaper, so that's kind of what we do. So, we're going to transition now. We talked about artists, talked about BJ and his music, and we're really, really honored to bring on Joy Proctor, also, who is a self-published author who has recently published a book called The Wicked Stepmother, or is that what it's called? The Wicked Stepmother?
Or maybe not.
Yeah. Or maybe not. Okay,
yes.
Good. Since I had a stepmother who was far from wicked, so I'm glad that the or maybe not there.
Exactly.
Let's talk. First of all, thank you for joining us, Joy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So before we get into the book, I want to get into the writing. because those are two things that, you know, are between jazz and writing. Sometimes I feel like writing is becoming a lost art in our community. I mean, trying to get, you know, we're a newspaper, we work with young people, but the art of crafting a sentence has really lost its place in our society. How did you decide that, you know, you wanted to write a book?
So I had no plans on writing a book. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at a very early age. So reading was not my favorite at all. And it's still a little, I love television. I'm a visual person. So this is, I'm very proud of myself for writing this short read because it was tough for me, you know, growing up with my disability. But I'm so glad I did it. And as you say, it is a lost art, you know, but a lot of people have ordered the book because they say they can't read it online. So I don't think it'll be my last book either. So
You said it's a short read.
yeah, so it's not a novel. It's a fiction, and it can be considered a novel, but a novel usually has a certain amount of words. But it's just 136 pages, so it's just short enough for someone like me, and to dive in, give you what you need, and get out of there. You know.
I know you didn't come on to talk about that, but I am curious, at what age were you diagnosed, you know, with dyslexia?
So no, it's a part of my story. So it was elementary school. I want to say maybe like third or fourth grade that I was diagnosed, and I remember having all the testing and everything done, and it became very tough for me, you know, and with school. So and I still struggle as an adult to this day, but writing this book has really been a major milestone for me.
And how so?
Uh, just because of my background, you know.
Yeah, but I mean,
Now,
how did you get through it? How did you, you know, decide?
oh,
Did you
so
have
I
to
have
do
this
use any
thing.
special tools? Did you have to use any special, you know, was there anything that helped you to actually go through the process?
So I outsourced. I asked for help, you know, because the idea of the book came to me when I became a stepmother, you know, and becoming a stepmother later in life. I've been married 3 years now, and I have two children and two stepdaughters. So become growing up differently and having different perspectives on how to raise children, I could see how maybe the stepmother in Cinderella may have gotten a bad rap. So I thought about, oh, let me try. I said maybe I should write a book about it, you know. And it started off as a personal book, but I didn't want it to be about my relationship with my husband, my children, and my stepchildren. So I turned it into a fiction, and I think it's a great story. And because I'm visual, I would love to see it on the screen one day. So, but it's a play on the Cinderella story. Yeah.
You know, people often, like you said, it's a stigma that step parents often get
Yeah.
about being, you know, certain kinds of people. They're wicked, they're mean, they're unloving, they're whatever. And I thought maybe we had begun to come past that. But what's your thoughts on that? I mean, what does the stigma still exist?
So I think I'm not saying that there aren't some that are out there, but as I said, I think it's sometimes just a misunderstanding, and I think we have come past it to for certain. I mean, come past it, and we have. I think we have come past it, but there are still a few that there are like that. But I wanted to do the book, so people will be like, "Oh, there's another side to the story," which most stories have two sides. All stories have two sides. So I wanted to give her, the stepmother, some life instead of wicked, and that's why I put made sure the or not was on the title. So people will say, oh, okay, let me see what this is all about.
You know, we hadn't really planned this in time for Mother's Day, but you know, Mother's Day is coming up.
Yes.
a week from Sunday. I'm letting
Yeah.
everybody, trying to remind everybody, Mother's Day is a week from Sunday. And those, you know, people who are adopted mothers, I mean, blood-related mothers, stepmothers,
Yes.
all of those folks will be honored on that day. And I don't want you to give the whole book away. Of course, we're not going to do that because we want people to read it. But I mean, what could you name a couple of the challenges, or what is, you know, what's the big thing in this book that you're really trying to address, or maybe one story about it? What's the stepmother's name? Does she have a name?
So her name is Angelica. The stepmother's name is Angelica.
Okay.
And I guess a part of the story is just a misunderstanding where she may think the stepdaughter, which her name is Sydney is just being a brat. And it's the thought of Sydney lost her mother, you know, and Angelica lost a husband. So there's a mental aspect on it. And the thought of just trying to relate to each other, that we both lost people, you know, and we have to deal with these things together. So
yeah, I'm sure that sounds like something a lot of people can relate to. I'm glad to. Cecilia says the book is amazing, so someone has read it and is giving you a shout out, which is great.
Yes. Awesome.
And so now, how can people get it?
So I am. The book is on Amazon. They can also reach out to me, because if you're an author, you know that Amazon takes a large portion of your book, or you can reach out to me and I can ship it, but it's also on Barnes and Noble as well.
Wonderful. Well, we have your email address here, and so people can email you in case they want a copy of the book. And it looks like, you know, you're going to address some issues that a lot of people face in families today, and how that works. So I think it's a great piece of work that I'm glad you penned, despite, you know, the issues that you dealt with. The challenges. Yes. Yeah. So I'm wishing you the best of luck with this. You have another book in your heart or in your mind that you want to?
So it has become a little bit of a bug. So yes, I have.
All right.
On another one. Yes.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write this book?
Oh, so I want to say about 4 years. Because with just the writing challenges that I have, and the patience, and I also have a floral delivery business. So follow Curtis Array on Instagram and Facebook. With Mother's Day coming, I do deliveries.
Okay, we missed that. The connections got a little bad. What's the name of the business?
The Curtis Array.
The Curtis Array. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So it took me about 3 to 4 years to write the book. And the pandemic speeded it up. It sped it up a little bit.
Right.
You know, because it kept me down, focused.
Well, I asked that only because, you know, a lot of people have a book in their heads.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes I hear so many stories where it may take some may be able to spit one out in a month. Others have taken up to 10 years and longer. Yeah. So, you know, it's good that you stayed focused, and that now you have produced your baby, and look forward to seeing what's next. That's a beautiful cover. I wonder why we didn't show that, but that's wonderful. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Joy.
Thank
you. Tell all your daughters,
son and 3 daughters.
Son and 3 daughters. All right. Tell them all their mom was on Win TV, and send it out to all their friends and relations, and to read the book.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Surely. All righty. Well, I think this brings us to our show, Sherry. Oh, Dr. V. Oh my goodness. Dr. V.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I would have gotten off and said, "What happened to Dr. V? I'm so
I
glad
know,
you're
right?
here." Yeah, because there's been so much going on this week. I talked about it at the beginning of the show, the fact that folks aren't going back to get their second vaccine, and
Yes.
now cities and everything, they're opening up, and they're gonna. I think the Johnson & Johnson vaccine looks like it's about to make a comeback. Bring us up to date. What's going on?
So yeah, there are a lot of people who are not going back to get their second vaccine, and I tell people if you don't want to get a second vaccine, just get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is only one shot. But I think people are avoiding it because the second shot, because they're concerned about getting sick. And there's a lot of things that you can actually do to avoid getting sick. And I want to tell people what that is. So if you have an upcoming second shot, if you drink a lot of fluids and you take either Motrin or Tylenol, whichever one you tolerate best prior to the shot, and you get a lot of sleep and you don't drink any alcohol, and then the morning of your shot, you want to do the same thing. Drink a lot of fluids, take some Motrin or Tylenol. Most people have actually been able to really lessen the symptoms by doing that sort of prep work. So I did that myself. I actually even took the day off thinking I might need to take the day off because with the setting that I work in, fatigue doesn't work well if you're an emergency medicine physician. Right. So, and I had no problems with the second shot. So, it is something where I think you really have to prep a little bit more for it. But it's critically important to take the second shot. And both Pfizer and Moderna have announced that we're going to need a booster shot. And so I think that's really, and so you've got to take the second shot to get to the third shot, right? So now, and what I tell people is, this is what's happening. It's not because the shot is wearing off, right? The issue is with India and Brazil and the Philippines having infections that are crazy.
It's
We're
horrific.
actually getting
Yeah.
a lot of mutations, right? So we have to get a booster shot because those mutations that are in India and Philippines and Brazil are going to go around the world, right? And so we have to protect ourselves from those mutations. So as I tell people, I feel like I have a book that I want to write about this pandemic. Right?
And I can't wait to read it.
We are one humankind worldwide.
Right.
And we have to realize that we have to help other countries actually knock this out as well in order for us all to get back to being more regular.
And people who study this, I guess they're epidemiologists, or
Yes.
they're people. I mean, they've known that these things were coming for a long time.
Yeah.
They've been preparing for them. They're studying for them. They know what's next, what's coming through the door next. We're the ones that are sort of blindsided by it and not knowing really how to prepare ourselves for it.
Right.
Like this booster shot. When is
When
is that prescribed? In the fall?
Yeah,
Okay.
the fall. I think that people can expect to see a Moderna and a Pfizer booster shot probably sometime in the September, October, November time range. I know that I do have one patient that actually has already been scheduled. She went for her second, and they scheduled her third at her visitation for her second vaccination.
And it makes sense to a certain extent, because after we, as we go into the summer and there's going to be a lot more of us, grouped together and trying to do normal things like going back to church and concerts and all that, you need to strengthen that. I get it. I wanted to also talk with you really quickly, Dr. V, because the last week I have talked to a lot of people, and you mentioned this before, who have been suffering from sinus headaches and the allergies and all of that. Right. And I've shared with them the advice that you gave, one about the local honey. I've shared with that, and I haven't had anybody to tell me yet, that they tried it and it worked. But I just wanted you to, this season has just been really tough for a lot of folks. Yeah. So is there anything else you might want to say about that?
Yeah, well, I think that it is very tough. I think that, if you have sinuses that you feel are extremely debilitating, you can see an allergist and get skin tested, and they can actually set you up to see whether or not you could possibly be desensitized to whatever it is that's causing you, debilitating allergies. But for the normal person that kind of has the allergies that are kind of annoying, but not debilitating, the best thing really is the local honey and over the counter medications. I do suggest that people stay away from nasal sprays because they can be kind of kind of almost addictive. Like you wind up having to use them almost all the time. Right. So sticking more to things like Claritin, like the pills that you actually take to actually decrease your inflammatory response is really the better way.
So next month, May, we're going to talk about a couple of things that are coming up. One is Mental Health Month, and just some overall advice for what people need to do. We don't know how mentally sick we are. We're just functioning from day to day to day. But we, is anything you want to kind of prep us for with regards to what we should be focused on this month?
Yeah, so I do. I think that, so one of the things is COVID has an increased concentration in the brain more than the lungs. And we are seeing an explosion of mental health in the emergency departments. So one of the things that I would actually say to people, I'm seeing more mental health than I've ever seen. And I think it's related to COVID. And I'm telling people just, even if folks didn't catch COVID or you didn't think they had COVID, check in on friends and family members and see how they're doing. A lot of them are, as the jazz artist said, wearing a mask. And sometimes mental health is really not about, I feel sad, I just don't feel anything, right? And so one of the things that I would say between now and when we talk about it again is for everybody that's listening now, just reach out and talk to people and ask them how they're doing, and really don't take the first, oh yeah, I'm fine. Inquire a little bit more to really get at what's actually going on with them.
Wonderful. Great advice. Great advice. Dr. B, I always love having you on. And we're going to look forward to talking about that and some other things during the month of May. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you then.
All right. See you then.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to the end of another edition of Win TV. Don't go away. I want you to watch the media print with what's going on in DC. And then after that, a featured artist on Sounds of the DMV, all brought to you by WI Bridge. It's been a great week. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay tuned and share the show with a friend. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Hey DC, we made it to the Oscars. Viral moments happening right here by the monument. And would you like to get a free $100? But tune in. This is what's going on, DC. So I'm your boy, the Media Prince, and let's get straight into it. First up, the most epic thing happened ever. Celebrated actress Glenn Close lets us know she knows her DC history at this year's Oscars. Take a look.
That's not fair to Glenn Close. She don't know nothing about doing it.
Wait a second. I know that's da butt. Yeah, it's da butt. I know that. Da butt was, wait a second. It was a classic song by the great Washington, D.C. go-go band EU. Oh. So, yeah, and shout-outs to Sugar Bear and the Backyard Band and the whole DMV. So anyway.
And huge shout-out to actor DMV's own Darrell Britt Gibson, who made sure Miss Close was all cued in on her DMV information. You love to see it. And shout-out to him, too, because that's a great actor we have here in the DMV that was at the Oscars. Hey, DMV, do you guys remember the epic hit by Wale entitled Bad? No, not the one with Rihanna, this one.
Easy, baby.
Well, the lovely young lady, Tiara Thomas, just nabbed an Oscar, and she shouted out DMV. She is beyond thankful for the DMV audience who embraced her first. In sports, the Washington Wizards beat the Warriors on fans opening night for a 6th straight win. Now that's what I'm talking about. Hey DC, would you like a chance to be on a video chat with the one and only Maya? Yes. Take me there. I want to go there. Well, you have until May 5th to do so. So head over to our profile on Instagram now and sign up. I know I signed up. So many viral things are happening, but it's beautiful when it's in our own backyard. Well, take a look at these 3 African kings who had the streets of Constitution Avenue jumping. As you see, outside is opening up. Well, DC bars and music venues are now considering requiring vaccinations so they can reopen. How are you feeling about that, DC? We want to hear from you. Breaking news, DC. The House passes a bill to admit Washington, D.C. to be the 51st state. We are still waiting on Senate. How do you feel knowing that D.C. may actually become a state? DC's own Dave Chappelle has a new podcast. Take a look.
Welcome to the Midnight Miracle.
Would you like to earn $100, DC? I just saw all of you guys drop everything. Come on, a little closer. Well, DC Public Library wants to hear from you. They want to know how they can improve their services, and you could get that free money. Head over to wibridgedc.com now for all the details. DMV, the Urban One Honors are coming back, hosted by the one and only Erica Campbell and Roland Martin, and it will be on your airwaves on May 16th. This year's honors is something that celebrates us, and it's right here in our own backyard. Tune in to TV One for the epic night. Congratulations goes to DMV's own A King Called Pedro, who hit 1 million streams worldwide on his own merit. Didn't I say the DMV music scene is winning? Congratulations, King. So another week is done. DC is just piping hot right now, and I'm glad that we are able to bring it to you. For all this and more, head over to wibridgedc.com. Again, I'm your boy, the Media Prince, and don't forget to follow our hashtags, WIBridgeTMPStyle, for all the latest looks. And if you're just scrolling and you want to catch up fast, follow the hashtag WGODC. Until next week.
Yeah. Bridge, what up? Rest in peace, DMX. We all we got. It's like when you're going for the crown, you gonna hold that shit down? Yeah, we back. Got it bumping. Sitting in my garden, pouring up Pinot Noir. Twist his eyes, I'm smoking sativa under stars. On guard, my heart, only with war scars. On guard, my heart, only go so far. Any up I probably had came from niggas I love. So if a nigga kill me, he probably show me some love. He might be up in my casket, but know what he done. He might go up to my mama with kisses and hugs, Lord. How could you load it? This the life that he chose. Baby D had all the friends and he f***ed all the hoes. It was me, Lily, and Joseph, he had all the clothes. Them niggas never gave me shit, I did what I know. Check the resume. If a nigga say I didn't, then it's hella hate. We be in the kitchen, here's a better plate. You ain't gotta shoot the shot to make a better play. Swish, Floyd, LBJ. Young LeBron James. Yeah. Niggas know my name. Nah, 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 nah. Nah, 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 nah. It's love, money, and drugs. Look, they try to leave me off these lists like I didn't exist. Inconsistency persists when you call in the mix. Even bitches keep their distance, they know I'm a flake. I put work before my wealth and I own it today. Fucking talent, I'm putting mileage on foreign rentals. No Bugattis, I'm talking Hondas, Kias, and rentals. Thinking Lynch used to want me to sell him a Dodge. Now I'm wishing on the stars, I pay my homage. The hardest niggas hurt when they pray in the dark. I ask God to live forever, don't say me a spot. Cause I don't wanna die, look fucking I'm scared. What if it's nothing after here, my legacy's dead? What about me? What you ever do to benefit D? You never like the post or even a tweet. Fuck you think this supposed to be? I can vouch for me. You just a fucking leech, to say the least. Look, fuck you think this supposed to be? I can vouch for me. It's love, money, and it's love, money, and it's love, money, and it's love, money, and drugs. Pinot Noir. Love y'all, DC or not. Nah, 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 nah. Yeah. Bridge, what up? Growing up in DC, you pick up on the rich history of arts here. We got so many, from Duke Ellington to Marvin Gaye. And then if you think about all the people that migrated to DC and went to college here, or somehow lived here for a short period of time or a long period of time, but they found their creative juices. So much of the music industry comes here, the Mid-Atlantic region, where they make or break records. So there's a rich culture of arts and entertainment, but specifically music. Not to mention go-go being such a vibrant inspiration here. And, I got a rich lineage in that as well. So just being a sponge and seeing all of these great artists and influencers and personalities coming up here, I definitely wanted to kind of place my mark and leave my flag down in that history. So I just always been inspired to make my impact in the DC store. Swish, Floyd, LBJ. I remember growing up and we had these events, Georgia Avenue Day, Unifest. I remember being on stage at one of them, might be like 1995, 96, and just seeing the way the city responded to the band. I was up there with Essence and Backyard and all these different people. Seeing the way that the city responded to them, it inspired me. A lot of people all over the world, they look up to these hip-hop figures. But in DC, we had icons that a lot of the world never even knows about. But these are the guys that inspired me to want to leave my mark. They just captivated the crowd, and the whole city was behind them, and I always wanted that. Wishing on the stars, I pay my homage. The hardest. Well, first let me say, I just put out Goat Season in January, and it's doing amazing. The reviews been great for me. It's very humbling, and I appreciate it. So what we're gonna do is, next month we're gonna do a deluxe version of Goat Season with 3 or 4 new singles, as well as a podcast to accompany the actual project, the EP, as well as doing a lot of features and just working with other artists, not just in DC, but really all over the world, try to push this sound and this brand and this movement bi-coastal and universal as well. So that's it. And everybody can find me on Instagram, all social media everywhere, Floyd World, everything. I'm everywhere. Pinot Noir.